May 17th, 1945, 1420 hours. Schwabach, Bavaria, American occupied zone. The line stretches 40 meters down Königstrasse, women mostly, a few elderly men, children with hollow eyes and swollen bellies pressed against their mothers' legs. They wait outside what used to be the Hoffman Bakery, now a U.S. Army distribution point for emergency rations. Sergeant James Whitmore of the 45th Infantry Division stands at the doorway, clipboard in hand, managing the flow. 9 days since Germany's surrender. The war is over, but the dying continues. Starvation doesn't stop just because someone signed papers in a schoolhouse in Reims. No woman catches his attention. Mid-30s perhaps, though hunger ages people. Her coat, once quality wool, hangs loose on a frame that has lost 20, maybe 30 pounds. She holds a small girl, 4 years old, who hasn't made a sound in the entire hour they've been waiting. The woman's name is Margarete Fischer. The soldier doesn't know this yet, won't know it for another 20 minutes when everything changes. The arithmetic of collapse. The numbers tell one story. By May 1945, the average daily caloric intake for German civilians in the American occupation zone has fallen to 1,040 calories. The human body requires 2,000 to maintain basic function. Do the math. Every day subtracts from life itself. The infrastructure tells another. Allied bombing has destroyed 40% of Germany's housing stock. Bridges are twisted steel in rivers, railway networks reduced to scattered segments of functional track. The system that moved food from countryside to city has simply ceased to exist. But statistics don't capture what Sergeant Whitmore sees every day at the distribution point. The trembling hands, the desperate politeness, the way mothers position themselves between their children and everyone else, as if their bodies could somehow shield against hunger itself. Margarete Fischer has been coming here for 6 days. Each day, she receives one small loaf of army-issue bread and 2 tins of rations, enough to keep her daughter alive, barely enough for both of them. She splits the bread, 3/4 for the child, 1/4 for herself. The tins she saves, rationing them across days, because she knows the next delivery isn't guaranteed. Her husband died in the Ardennes offensive, December 1944. She received the notification in February, delivered by a Wehrmacht officer who looked 16 years old. The 1,000-year Reich was already collapsing then, though no one would admit it. The system of survival. The American military government operates under conflicting directives. General Eisenhower's JCS 1067 orders strict limits on fraternization and aid. Germany must understand it has lost. No softness, no charity beyond basic prevention of disease and unrest. But soldiers are not abstractions. They're farm boys from Iowa and mechanics from Pittsburgh. They liberated concentration camps 3 weeks ago and saw things that made them vomit in the woods. They also see German children who look like their younger siblings. Sergeant Whitmore grew up in Montana. His father ran a hardware store that barely survived the Depression. He remembers hunger, though nothing like this. He remembers his mother splitting meals, eating less, so the children could have more. The regulations say each civilian gets their ration and no more. The reality involves small acts of mercy, performed when officers aren't watching. An extra tin slipped into a basket, a slightly larger loaf placed on the counter instead of in the designated slot. Whitmore doesn't break rules, obviously. He bends them within margins of plausible deniability. But even bent rules have limits. The offer. Margarete Fischer reaches the counter at 15:25 hours. She carries a cloth bag, empty, waiting to be filled with whatever can be obtained. Whitmore hands her the standard ration. 1 loaf, 2 tins. She doesn't take them immediately. Instead, she reaches into her coat pocket. Her hand emerges clutching something small, metallic. She places it on the counter, a wedding ring. Simple gold band, no stones, the kind working people could afford before the world broke apart. "Bitte," she says. "Please." Her German is soft, proper middle-class pronunciation, now edged with desperation. "Mehr Brot für meine Tochter." More bread for my daughter. The child at her side looks up at Whitmore, with eyes that have learned not to hope for anything. Whitmore stares at the ring. He understands what it represents. Not just monetary value, though gold has worth even now. It represents everything this woman has left of her former life. The symbol of a marriage to a man now dead. The last tangible connection to a time before destruction. She's offering her past for her daughter's immediate future. The calculation is simple, brutal. The ring might buy enough food to keep the child alive another week. Other soldiers might take it. The black market thrives in occupied Germany. A gold ring trades for significant quantities of bread, eggs, butter. Some GIs collect such items, knowing they'll fetch good prices back home. Whitmore picks up the ring, examines it. The interior is engraved with initials and a date, MS and HF, 14/06/1936. 9 years ago. A world ago. The response. What happens next takes 17 seconds. Whitmore will remember the exact duration for the rest of his life. He places the ring back in Margaret's hand, closes her fingers around it, doesn't let go immediately, making sure she understands she must keep it. Then he turns to the storage area behind him, returns with 4 loaves of bread instead of 1, 6 tins of rations instead of 2, a small jar of powdered milk, 2 bars of army chocolate. He places everything in her cloth bag, looks directly at her, says in broken German, "Behalten Sie den Ring." Keep the ring. Margarete Fischer makes a sound. Not quite a gasp, not quite a sob. Something between disbelief and the collapse of every defense mechanism that has kept her functioning through the past 6 months. Her legs fail. She drops. Not dramatically, just the sudden absence of strength. She's on her knees on the concrete floor, both hands pressed over her mouth, the cloth bag spilled beside her, bread and tins scattered. The other women in line freeze. Some move to help her. Others simply watch, understanding something beyond words has occurred. Whitmore comes around the counter, helps her to her feet. She's shaking, tears streaming. She tries to speak but can't form words. The little girl tugs at her coat, frightened by her mother's breakdown. "Danke," Marguerite finally manages. "Thank you." Then again, "Danke, danke, danke," each repetition breaking further into tears. Whitmore gathers the scattered items back into her bag, makes sure she has everything, nods to the next woman in line to indicate distribution continues. Margarete Fischer walks away, holding her daughter's hand. The wedding ring remains on her finger. The bag of food hangs heavy on her shoulder. She stops twice in the next block, just to lean against buildings and weep. The aftermath. Whitmore continues distributing rations until 1800 hours. He notes the extra items in his log as damaged goods, unfit for storage. The officer who reviews logs later that week doesn't question it, or chooses not to. The story spreads through Schwabach within 2 days. Word of mouth in a shattered city. The American who wouldn't take the ring, who gave extra rations instead. Small legends grow from small mercies in desperate times. Other soldiers hear about it. Some approve, others argue, Whitmore created expectations that can't be sustained. They're not wrong. The official ration is the official ration. Exceptions cause problems. But humans don't operate purely on regulation. They operate on recognition, of seeing another person, not an enemy civilian, not an abstract German, but a mother trying to keep her child alive. Margaret Fischer survives. So does her daughter, Anneliese. They live in Schwabach through the occupation, through the currency reform of 1948, through the birth of the Federal Republic. Anneliese eventually emigrates to Canada in 1967, marries, has children of her own. The wedding ring stays in the family. Margaret wears it until her death in 1973. In her will, she leaves it to Anneliese, with a note explaining what happened that day in May 1945, explaining why she never considered selling it afterward, even when times remained difficult, explaining what it meant that a soldier from the conquering army saw her humanity when she could barely remember it herself. The meaning of mercy. Post-war Germany occupies a strange moral space in historical memory. The revelation of the Holocaust creates justified rage. Germany as a nation bears responsibility for unprecedented evil. The suffering of German civilians exists alongside their complicity or silence during the Nazi regime. Yet suffering remains suffering. A hungry child is a hungry child, regardless of what adults in her nation permitted or participated in. The question of collective guilt versus individual humanity produces no clean answers. Sergeant Whitmore never claimed moral superiority for his action. In interviews decades later, he described it simply: a mother needed food. He had access to food. The equation resolved itself. But the action contained more than logistics. It contained recognition of shared humanity across the divide of war, of the difference between justice and cruelty, of understanding that while Germany deserved to face consequences for its crimes, starving children served no purpose beyond revenge. The wedding ring represents this tension. Margaret offered it because she had nothing else. Whitmore returned it because taking it would have been easy and legal and wrong. Mercy isn't weakness. It's the conscious choice to extend humanity when you have every reason and right not to. It's seeing the person in front of you rather than the category they represent. May 17th, 1945. A small transaction in a ruined city. A ring offered and returned freely when it could have been withheld. A mother who collapsed, not from hunger, but from the shock of unexpected compassion. The moment lasted seconds. The meaning persisted generations. Sometimes the small choices matter most. Sometimes a single act of decency becomes the foundation upon which people rebuild their faith in human possibility. The war ended. The dying slowly stopped. Life continued, scarred but persistent. And one family kept a gold ring as reminder that even in collapse, even across enemy lines, even in the arithmetic of hunger and defeat, humanity sometimes asserts itself through simple recognition. We see each other. We choose mercy over cruelty. We remember we are human together.